Hello, everyone. Welcome to Figure It Out with Fatema. It is Thursday. Happy Thursday. Um, welcome you all to this episode. I think it's a special one for me. Have Barry Panayi today. I know it's just which is amazing. Like we have a lot of chats offline, and I'm really excited about today. Um, because I think there are some conversation, that they will land differently, and we have lots of chats, and I feel like bringing this online and sharing that with you is very special. Barry has led a lot of organizations, major organizations, like John Lewis, Lloyds, and now in Howden, and his experience is impressive. He's an expert in what he does. That's how I see it. And I'm really excited to have you here, Barry.
Oh, that's kind. I'm excited to be here as well. It's quite hot. We're filming this on like the mega heat meltdown day. So apologies if I look a little bit flushed. I'm usually quite chilled, but I'm literally boiling hot in here. So yeah.
It's one of those days, but thank you for making it. Like, really appreciate that.
Oh, no worries.
So I think having your experience, like you're an expert in what you do. And whenever we're speaking about expert in the area, your name always comes up. Like whenever I'm in conferences or I'm chatting with suppliers or, people in the field, your name always is there, like always comes up. So I'd love to hear more about your journey and, across your career.
Sure. I mean, whether I'm an expert or whether I've just been doing it for a bloody long time, I don't know if those two things are linked. It's all I've ever done. I started off as a data analyst, really, cutting code and then managing teams, and worked at consultancies and client side. And eventually I became the chief data officer at Lloyds Banking Group, which is a real privilege. It was a privilege to do that. I fancied a change of industry, so I went to the John Lewis partnership, and now I'm back in financial services. I love it. I think data is so important, and even more so now in the age of AI and how the companies are automating and digitizing everything. I've worked with some massive organizations, with some great people. I've been lucky to have brilliant teams. So I always feel like whenever anyone wants to chat, if there's anything useful that can come out of it, I should pass it on, because I've had lots of people give me loads of good advice, and I'm probably just regurgitating the bits that I've used. So it might not all be original stuff, but I've been very lucky to have some great mentors and people helping me.
Mentors make a lot of a difference.
Oh, yeah.
And so can I also, because you've worked in really major UK institutions, like whether it is Lloyds, whether it is John Lewis or now Howden, it's just like those are different from obviously financial services to retail. It's just like it requires also different skill sets, right? So I'd love to hear like that experience and moving across industries, because I think it shapes people differently.
I mean, I believe that unless it's a very, very specialist, smaller company where you have to pitch in and be a real domain expert, that if you understand the full spectrum of data stuff and you hire the right team and you go in with the right expectations with the company, it's very beneficial to take lessons from one industry into another. And a lot of the problems are the same. I think the biggest skill to have hasn't changed really in like 26 years or however long I've been doing it. It's to be able to tell a story. People claim that data people aren't very good at telling stories or building a narrative, but I think that's lazy for people to think that. I think data people understand how to do a story really, really well, and sometimes aren't given the chance. So I always look for places where they don't want to put the data team in the back, in the corner. They want to tell the story, the truth that the data tells you, and they need to be hungry for it. And that's what all the organizations I've worked for have in common. They understood the power of it, but they wanted the insight team, the data team, however you want to call it, to be able to weave that story together. And I think if you can do that as a data person, you're winning. It doesn't really matter if you're the best technical data person and you end up getting promoted to a certain level, if you can't tell the story, you're toast. I've seen loads of people suffer from that. And I like to talk and tell a story. It's one of the things I really enjoy. So that's the bit of my job I like the most.
I think telling a story is just like it's a special skill in itself, and you are really good at it. I remember that YouTube videos. I don't know if my network has seen it, but probably I'll link it later on. It's one of the things where you're able to, where you were, sharing experience about leadership, um, and you're able to tell that story. You're able to get the audience engaged as well, which I'm sure it's the same when you're discussing the data within the organizations and you know sharing the data products in the journey itself, because this it takes a lot of convincing, right? Um,
It does. I hate being bored. I hate boring things. I hate sitting in boring meetings and reading boring PowerPoints. So, you got to live up to what you want, I suppose. And there's nothing wrong with having a bit of fun and telling the right story and not using 100 words when you can only use 10. Someone said to me, who used to work in the newspaper industry, one of my best, oldest friends and mentors, that it takes more skill to be a tabloid journalist than it does a broadsheet journalist. It's much harder to distill things down into simple language. And that is a piece of advice that I have kept with me forever. And I distill into my teams, and they really despair when they do the best PowerPoint deck you've ever seen, but I don't like the headline, or there's too many words on it. That's the challenge, to reduce it down, because although I'm passionate about data, it's the only thing I really know about, that is a pretty small club really in an organization. And I think as data people, you need to realize that it's not that people don't like talking about this stuff, they're just not thinking about it 24 hours a day like you are. And simplifying is such a hard skill for such a difficult domain. Like, you may have had multiple models in the background and the data may have been awful and you need to engineer it in a certain way, and you've got machine learning this and there could be an agent doing that. Honestly, no one cares. Like, no one actually cares, and you've just got to present the story that tells them why their life and the organization's life is better now. You can squeeze a little bit of showing off about how hard it was if you want, but again, another great mentor of mine, she was chief marketing officer at loads of places, described it as telling the right to left story. You start at the end and you can go back if you want. But I think a lot of data people start from the far left saying, okay, we had this many data sources and, it was really hard, but don't worry, we were clever and we bought this tool and we did this thing. Then we did this other thing, then we did this other thing. And then by the time you get to the end, which is like the punchline, the thing, people are bored. Just don't bore them. I think catch them with the headline, and then they'll say, well, how do you know that? Or how did you get that? And then you can have that discussion. That's my view. There's other ways, but I've never been able to construct a compelling story. We don't just start with the headline, the thing.
I think it is how it lands. It's just like the headlines is so important, because this is the first thing people. It's like either you attract the people when you're like explaining to them, or they're like, oh, I'm not really interested anymore.
Unless you're in a room with data people. Like, if you're in a room with data people, do that stuff, right? But I'm talking about, I think what we're talking about here is like leadership and all that stuff. And therefore, you really shouldn't be in a room with all the data people. Like, you might have been doing the work, but this is like when you're at the exec or the board or whatever, commercial leadership team, whatever terrible name your company might give to a collection of big cheeses. That is where you do your work. That's that 15-minute, 20-minute slot to represent a 6-month project. And that's your job. And you should get good at it and practice it, because you're letting down however many people are in your team, sometimes hundreds, if you go there and you don't put on a show.
Yeah. And you're right, yes, because it's the business that it's just putting that show. Because I mean, within data, yeah, we get excited about the data and about the engineering and the architecture and all that. But this is like, I always tell my team, it's just like, we can chat about that together. But once we are with the business, we just need to be very clear that we speak the business language, because they don't really care about the pipelines or how automated they are and what we've done to make sure that the quality of data is right. They want to make sure the quality is good. How we've done that, it's not really they don't really care, right?
No, and if they're asking you about the quality and stuff, then they don't trust you, like, or you haven't worked with their teams enough. That it's absolutely, they can ask whatever they want, but usually if you've built up the trust, they want to know how they can use it straight away. And the telltale signs, if you're over engineering it, when you do some really beautiful visualization, usually something like a Sankey chart that someone's got excited about because they've worked out how to do it, and they say, "Oh, can I just see that in a table?" Yeah, you need to anticipate that. Can I just see that in a table and just put the bloody table on there? Like, you can color it in if you like, but really use the simplest tool you can. Reduce it down all the time. The words, the pictures, and sometimes a complex visualization is necessary. But honestly, you need to kick your own work around and role play the other side a bit more. And that might be something that data people need to build the muscle for. We're inclined to show the cleverness of it all. I love it. This is a chart where the bigger the blob, it means this, and the redder the blob, it means this, and if it's on this axis, it's this. And you think, oh God, bloody hell. Like, that's hard. It's just taking me 20 seconds to explain the chart. But don't use like exploded pie charts. That is also terrible.
Oh, yeah. Let's not speak about pie charts. Yes, I know. But building on storytelling and the skill set, you have such a great skill set for storytelling, and you've written a couple of books. You're a published author, and I have one of your books, which is The AI of the Beholder. But also I have the other book, but wanted to chat about that book. Where did it come from? How did you start it? Because it's such, like, I started it and it just keeps you going. It's something that you can't put down till you finish, at least know which character you are. But I'll leave you, like, how did that come from? Like, what triggered it?
Well, I wish I'd have spoken to you before I published it, so I could have put that quote on the back. That's so kind. Thank you. If I wasn't boiling hot because of the 39-degree temperatures, I'd be blushing right now. But thank you. That's very kind. I did the book because I was boring myself to tears. I was asked to do a presentation. In fact, I wasn't asked to do a presentation. I interpreted it as a presentation, and that's a problem. It shows you that I'm maybe not that good at this stuff. And I was writing this presentation about operating model and how you do this stuff. And I'm pretty good at doing PowerPoint, beautiful. Like, everything was aligned, the boxes were nice, lots of white space, simple words. And I read it back, it was about 20 pages. And I thought, oh my God, this is really boring. I am really boring. I'm boring myself. Like, how are the 100 people in the room going to react to this? Like, it's a good piece of work, but it's also terrible. It's like, why would I listen to this? Then I had the idea of how can I make it a bit more interactive, but usually people, they just do like a slider, or I don't know, maybe people put their hands up or something lame like that. So I committed to the place. I was doing the presentation. I'd do this kind of story, a bit like the books when you were young, where you could say, oh, you're in a cave and you're trapped and there's a dragon in there. If you want to run, go to this page. If you want to fight, go to this page, and you go to that page and you've either escaped or you're dead, or something. And I said, I'm going to do that, but it's going to be about your CDO and you're picking the operating model and all this stuff. And I'm not sure I explained it very well, but they said, go on then. And as I started writing it, I realized that my rudimentary maths was completely wrong, because of course, every time you have a choice, you expand out the number of different chapters. And I was at like 200 pages by the end of it. But my room looked like a serial killer's underground layer, because it had like all of the different paths. So you pick this one and you go to this one and you go to this one, and there's like string between the paths. And oh no, that one's broken. So there's bits of paper and string all together. And it was a lot harder than I thought. And then I did it as just a Word document. I did the workshop, and we play the game. It's a book, but it's kind of a game. You choose the choices, and at the end you get a grade, A, B, C, D, F, whatever. And someone said you should publish that, tidy it up a bit and everything. And I took their advice. It was quite fun, but then I published it and it's out there, and some people have liked it and used it. They use it in workshops, or they read it on their own, or they use it with their teams. Some people that have never worked in data have read it. Some data teams read it. I did it to be less boring, because I was boring myself.
it is genuinely very, yes, very interactive, and it is like a game. It is a game because you're like, oh, which of them will I pick? And then you're like, is that the right choice? Or I don't know if the necessary.
I would say there are no wrong choices, but that would
There's
be a lie. There are some pretty bad ones.
there- but I think to make it easy for the listeners as well, because people have like that's like if you don't if you haven't read that book, I think it will change your leadership style because there's a lot in it that people can reflect on because it shows like I think this is the chat we had even before going live. It shows you the personality, the leadership style you are, and the how you can fill that gap or improve, or if you're happy, that's fine as well. But but I think the beauty of it is just so you go forward till you find your leadership style, you find how you lead with how you lead an AI team and data team, but then you can go backwards and just work some of these skills as well.
Yeah, you can cheat, is what you're saying, right?
Yes,
You start with a good one and then go backwards. That's okay. You can do that. I used to do that with the books when I was young. Keep my finger in the page I just been to in case I made a terrible choice.
I know. I'm like, well, I mean, I didn't. Yeah, there are like A+ and stuff. I didn't get one of those, so I'll be very honest. But I was like quite curious to see what's like, what would it take to get one of those, and can I actually deliver something like that, or is it not my personality, or what would it take? So, so it's interesting to see how that, like, what inspired the concept and how you ended up publishing it, which is quite. I feel like publishing changes also your because you go through the whole process, Barry, right?
I
Of
was terrible
publishing.
at it. Like I think I was good at having the idea and writing it, but actually making it like fit on the page and not look too much like a GCSE English project. It's definitely not the slickest book. Like if you're looking for like a big academic publication, it is not that. And I spent so much time proofreading it, finding mistakes every time. And luckily, I had the help of Lawrence. So thank you, Lawrence, if you're listening somewhere, who painstakingly read every single word. And he was like, why is this chapter suddenly called, why is this character suddenly called this? We've never heard of that character before. And I was like, oh, that was what I called her originally. But then I realized it was a name of someone in my team. And I didn't really want to make her think I was writing about her. But then I forgot to do the find and replace. And, you know, just basics. It's really hard. My hat goes off to the people that write real hardcore books and all of the editors and all that stuff. It's hard, much harder than I thought. The whole thing was much harder than I thought it was. I guess I'm just more of an ideas person, but the execution took me ages.
But to be honest, this book, like you're saying, it's not academic, but I think it's very practitioner. It's more
I hope
focused,
so.
which is a different. You're speaking to a different audience. You're speaking to people who are doing they like this is doing this day in and day out.
Yeah, I hope this is vocation. There's like more of a vocational little chat in that book. I mean, there are so many good data books written by so much smarter people that are like qualified out of their ear holes on this stuff. And I just thought, if I try and enter that space, what's the problem? It's definitely not going to be as good as what's out there. Like there's some really good books about this is the model that you use to do this, and here's a frame you can use for this, and the techniques, and you know, that's great. So I thought, don't do that because I'll be rubbish at it, and at least try and do something a bit fun and different. And even if people don't agree with, I've had some pretty fruity LinkedIn messages where people have bought the book and said, I played it through, I made the right choices, and I only got a D. I think that's terrible. This choice should be a B, not a D. And that made me really, really pleased because people care. At least they've read it.
Yeah.
And it's all right to disagree. And, you know, it's made up at the end of the day based on my experiences. But you can get some pretty emotive, if you play it in a room with the different people and they make different choices, you can get some good arguments going about why they've made certain choices. I think that's good. You can't do that with like a textbook style thing.
And I think that's the bit because you've provided, I'd say the industry, you provided us with something where we can do with our teams. Like it's a game because all the other kind of things that you do is just like whether it's break the ice or things like that where it's just this one is different because you can get into those discussions with the team. Is like, what would we do we do this and do that, and you can do it together, which brings the team together. So one of the things, I don't know, it hit me, but somehow that book is, I'm not sure if you've written, it's kind of a mentorship book as well. Like, I don't know if we've done that on purpose or but you like
Well, I guess it's all the experiences of the great people I've worked with over the years. They've given me advice, and all the tons of mistakes I've made, like loads of them every day, distilled down into some narratives, I
mm,
guess. So I'd hope when people look at some of the characters, maybe not the ones that are a bit silly in the book, they might be able to see themselves, or they might be able to think, "Oh yeah, that's what I would have done." Because I've made versions of most of those endings in the book, and there are more bad ones than good ones. So hopefully, there's something to learn.
and I think what also was interesting going through the book is, again, I don't know if you've done that consciously, but you've explained to data people how they make other people feel. Like when you're saying, oh, you've picked that choice, but that choice will make the finance person feel X and Y, and that thing would make
It's
the
weird, isn't it?
IT.
A data book
Yeah.
about feelings. I do think it's a human game. This, in fact, the more AI and automation and Gen AI comes in, it'll be the human elements that are going to make the difference from a leadership point of view. And stakeholder, everyone knows, bring stakeholders on board and senior bar, everyone knows that. Everyone knows to do that. But in practice, it's hard to do if you've got the CFO shouting at you about one thing, the commercial person on another thing, and your manager saying the other thing. So I think the only way, and unless you like doing the kind of role play things in person, which I hate and always have hated, but I know they're very valuable learning experience and so on, and some people like them. But for me, this is kind of like a role play, but you just do it with your eyeballs in your head. You don't have to sit opposite your colleague pretending to have a difficult conversation with them. So hopefully it's accessible, and you don't have to tell people if you got a D. That's fine. It might not even be a D. It's just my opinion that it's a D.
Yeah.
But it's all about people. The whole thing's about people. It's not about writing the best code or knowing what graph to choose. That would be a different book. It'd be a cool book. It'd be maybe if you're starting your career book, that could be an idea for another one. But this isn't that. It's about leading a team, really. I'm not leading a team. That's a lie. It's about leading an organization. You just so happen to have a team to lead as well.
I think just putting the characters there and the different departments and how they felt about a decision and the consequences of what they will do based on their feelings or how they perceived what you're doing. Because sometimes, like, you'd see, like, the characters when I was especially different characters, oh, okay, the character did it with an intention, but because it landed on the IT desk or it landed on the CFO's desk, or then they perceived it differently because they don't get the data the same way the data person does, right?
And it's politics.
A lot,
Like,
yeah.
you have to recognize it. You don't have to love it, but sometimes success has many mothers and fathers, doesn't it? And it's good to let people share that success. And sometimes, even when something is someone's fault, it's best not to call it all out that it's their fault, and share the pain and share the blame, because, like it or not, that is the social currency that most organizations run in, and it's built on trust. They can trust you not to blindside them. They can trust you not to throw them under the bus. You can trust them to support you. And if you think you're in a leadership job where it is a pure meritocracy, where the best idea always wins, and you don't have to put any effort into building those relationships, then I guess you're either super lucky or not tuned in to it.
Yeah. No, I think it's quite a comprehensive book, to be honest, and it's just, although it's a fun book to read as well. But I'll pick it from there and ask, so because it's a leadership book, in your in your in your thoughts, what would really separate a good AI leader from a great one? Because they're like from an A plus, like an A to an A plus. You know what I mean? Like there is that.
But I think in this age of AI, which is, I don't know, we're in the middle of it or the start of it, or not even really started it yet, the customers for the data leader are really different, right? I talked about write it like a tabloid and graphs and everything. That's good. But there's now really soon, I sense loads of people lying about this and they haven't really built the agentic workforce and stuff. But let's assume that eventually we will actually have done it. The customers for your data will be either internal agents within the company running mid and back office processes, or even if you're in a B2B company, perhaps there's agents that are dealing with your agents to negotiate the best price. And then that means your prioritization as a leader has to be slightly different. This is something that I think lots of people are grappling with, which is the foundational data stuff that we have been banging on for ages, like data quality and everything, used to be annoying and quite risky, still is, but in the world of the AI, it is catastrophically risky because the agent will pick it up and it will scale and accelerate out of control very quickly. And therefore, one needs to think about the agentic customer, I think, the AI customer, whether that you're trying to sell something because an SEO is dead now and it's different through the use of these large language models and skills that are being built, whether you're B2B and there's price negotiations going on, whether you're onboarding a customer and that is all done now agentically. I actually think that the sharp end of AI, the data science models, the LLM models, all this stuff will be important. But the secret sauce, I think, will be knowing how to lead the data management bit and building relationships with new people in the organization that maybe didn't used to be your customers or your big stakeholders. Like who's the process owner? How do you understand how they've re-engineered the process? How do you help re-engineer the process so your data is flowing properly and the agents can pick it up? What about your relationship with the tech team? We've always had to work closely with the tech teams, but increasingly and correctly, I think, they're in charge of building this agentic mid or back office. It's a big technology play, but the data is what's flowing between them. And those data will come from production operational systems that maybe you've never had to ingest into a data lake or data warehouse before because no analytics has happened off it. But now, if you really are the group chief data officer, you're in charge of all data for that group, not just the data that you decide you want to ingest and control in the data lake. That needs a different frame, I think, as well. And I think AI, that data has always existed, of course. You have client onboarding systems and payment systems and systems that you don't use to do your fund Sankey charts. It's always been there. But data people are going to have to take some responsibility for understanding how data flows through these operational systems because of the way that AI is coming in. That's my opinion, and it might age terribly, and it might not be the case because we're not yet there yet. But I think our list of important stakeholders has just got much bigger.
I agree, and I think I love how you said the data will become even more important because at the moment the tech is fancy. People are speaking about the AI and the agents and the videos all over, like the social media, which is great. But really, to be able to do agentic RAG or React, like to be able to get there, if the data is not properly done, even the policies and the process, because to be able to do a RAG model, RAG, you need to kind of really have the right policies set and where they are and tag them right. And I don't think there is an organization that has all of that sorted. I don't think so, but maybe I'm wrong.
And that is why I think a career in data is still a great career to come into. Like it really is. It's the lifeblood of all of these things. I think the emphasis on what the most important bits of a data career look like are definitely going to change. You used to spend ages doing the analysis and stuff, and now probably you'd just be talking in natural language and getting that stuff back. So the skill sets will have to pivot a little bit, a lot.
And the skill set, what would you think about the skill set needed in leadership? Will they pivot as well? Will they change?
Well, it's a big debate, isn't it? Do you have a big technical person in charge or like a nice generic leader in charge? I still think it's important to know the nuts and bolts of how data works. But ultimately, I still think it's about telling the right story, explaining these things to people, explaining how the data flows, why it's important, why a taxonomy is important, for example. Trying to explain an ontology to a room full of people that have never had to think about it before. Suddenly, that's the layer that matters for AI.
And it needs a special skill set to be able to tell a story, to explain those words. Because, yeah,
It's a pretty dull story, isn't it? Like, even I haven't figured that bit out yet.
just walking into the room and explains, like, oh, we can't get the AI working because the ontology is not there. And it's like, what are you speaking? Is that English even? But I think that's.
Yeah, exactly right.
And I think one of the things that you mentioned when we were chatting about the book was how this is this book is from your own experience and from people you've actually met and you've seen working in the space. And I'm aware of time, and I want to make sure that it's my last question. For what would be the lessons you've learned from leading at scale? Like, what would maybe Barry now tell Barry 10 years ago? Because you've worked across like major like organizations, like those are like big beasts, like, you know, in the industry where they are, and you've managed that at scale. So what are the learnings and what?
I wish I'd have invested more time in the storytelling element, because I probably wasted a lot of good opportunities for growth and commercial benefit for my companies for just not telling the right story. And I wish I'd have realized what a great resource some of the people I'd met and the advice I was given was. I didn't really put it into action. Yeah, I've just worked with so many fantastic people, and it took me probably too long to reflect on everything they told me. I should have written it down maybe, or I don't know, done a Dear Data diary. It's only when I really stood back, and even writing this book, which is only like not even a year old or half a year old, that in a way made me write down all of the great tips and tricks that people had taught me, you know, and people are the best asset. Most people are kind and they want to help, unless you've got like a terrible boss or whatever. I feel like I've just been pretty privileged, and this is just a distillation of all the good things people have told me. So thank you to all of them. Their names have been changed to protect the innocent in the book, though. There's no real names in there.
Well, thank you for sharing. And I love the idea of a data diary. I think I might actually do that. Like, get a small book and actually write things down, because I feel like there are learnings and there are things where people just tell you, even if they're not data people, you're just like, it lands differently.
Yeah, all that feedback that you get from people when they don't like something or that you've made them annoyed about something, that's important to understand what has happened.
Yes.
Rather than just say, oh, we'll move on, because there's some good learnings in it. But, you know, I mainly just got annoyed and said, oh, that's their fault, and then forgot about it. I shouldn't have done that.
But I think it's like most people, I believe, I have like a genuine belief in life that people are genuinely nice. We're built to be nice. And it's just, so it's like how to work with each other, because data is about collaboration. It's one of the functions that you can't work alone. Like, it's just like, you need finance, you need IT.
Well, none of them are. We're all people, right? Like, you know, we're all people working in a place, spending time there. And if it is a proper team, you all want each other to succeed.
Yes, that is true. So I'm aware of time, as I said, and I want to thank you very much, really, for the book and for being here today.
Oh, well, thanks for having me and being so kind.
Thank you very much, really. The book is amazing, and thanks for sharing your experience today. It means a lot, because I know that we have those chats offline, and yeah, it's an honor to have you online and share that with the audience and the rest of the network. But again, the book is amazing, and I recommend it to, like, literally any data leader who's doing AI and it wants to succeed in AI. You should read that book. So I'll put a link to it. It's on Amazon, right?
It is, yeah.
So I'll put it in the chat. But thanks again, Barry.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Yeah. Stay cool.
Thank you very much. And thanks everyone who's listening. Feel free to put any of your questions in the chat. Like, we'll be monitoring, hopefully, the video afterwards. So if you're watching this on demand and you haven't been able to watch us online, please feel free to put your comments or your questions. And yeah, between us, I think we'll be responding. But thanks.
Yeah, we'll give it a bash.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And thanks again, Barry. Cheers.
No worries. See ya.
Have a great evening, everyone.